Hello, my name is Jana Skokan. I'm the co-founder of Frogeex. I want to welcome you and thank you for joining our Frogeex YouTube channel today. If you like the content that we're sharing and the ideas that we're discussing, please like it, comment on it, and share it. And most importantly, come and join us on our live events. You have the opportunity to discuss with experts, exchange with like-minded people, and expand your perspectives all around topics related to sustainable building, sustainable living. And I also want to encourage you to click the little notification bell, subscribe to our channel, and never ever miss another episode of Frogeex Green Tech Talks in the future. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a great day. Welcome in today's session of the Frogeex Green Tech Talk. It's a great pleasure to introduce our speakers of today, Ms. Roshni Gajjar. She's the founder and expert in ESG consulting and strategy and business planning in the company of Stratastute. Hopefully I pronounce it correctly, based in South Africa.
Thank you, Jana. Glad to be here today and to be joining you.
Nice to have you here. Definitely a pleasure to also welcome Mr. David Goodman from the US, dialing in at an early hour. The founder of Edenarc Group, also pretty much focusing around ESG certifications, helping companies on their path to carbon neutrality and also reaching net zero. So he's gonna share with us more on the approach in the US, and we're gonna have some interesting discussions around that, I believe, in the session today. David, nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Wonderful to see you. Next on the list is Mr. Josh Law. So Josh, welcome on board today.
Thanks very much.
So also super excited to share that you are the founder of a very interesting and a new event happening on the continent of Africa. Josh is also dialing in from South Africa, and he came basically with the idea to realize an ESG focused event on the continent, bringing people together, exchanging on the ideas, sharing with the business and for the business, what are the key elements of ESG and what to prepare for. So thanks a lot, Josh, for taking the time and sharing a little bit what is happening in that part of the world on this topic with us.
Thank you.
Wonderful to have you over here. And we have few more other speakers. I'm not quite sure if we will have everybody on the call exactly right now, but for sure we have some people joining also in the duration of the call. Next as a speaker would be Mr. Parin Makadia.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Parin, nice to meet you and nice to have you in the call today. So Parin is the founder of Celeste, also looking for or after certifications or sustainability ESG related certifications of businesses based in UK. He's gonna also share with us more about the approach of Celeste, but he's also the concept owner and the idea owner of a very interesting platform called One Sustainable, which I highly recommend you to also visit and have a look at. And we're going to talk also with Parin in his slot around, what is the situation in UK for ESG, what is the regulatory framework, and how one business owner can find his way to a meaningful and also accessible certification that is suitable for him. So Parin, once again, thank you for taking the time and being here with us.
First off, everyone, let me apologize. This PowerPoint presentation is about 40 some odd minutes, and I have 7 minutes, so I'm going to just jump through this very quickly and hit a couple key points. So I apologize for paging through this fast. We can send you this PowerPoint should you wish it. With regard to us, we're a global company. We currently have clients in Africa and Europe and Asia. What we're going to talk about is the four legs of the stool: sustainability, certification, carbon neutrality, ESG, and net zero, and the suggested prioritization of which one you do first, second, third, and fourth. Then we're going to touch on why become certified as a sustainable company. And then finally, should you choose to do that, what kind of a program should you look for? So in terms of priority, we recommend our clients start with sustainability certification, then move to carbon neutrality, then ESG and net zero. It is hard to do a new thing. It is really hard to try to do 3 new things at once. Sustainability certification is the greatest return on investment for your company. It has the best brand impact. It'll keep management happy. It'll train your staff. If you choose the right sustainability certification platform, it will be the foundational platform for the other 3 legs of the stool. So if you start with sustainability certification and then you move through carbon neutrality, which is a natural progression of sustainability certification, ESG would be third, and net zero, of course, would be last, because net zero, as we all know, is when you're reaching out to your vendors and other organizations for information, so you don't have full control of that. Next point I want to make is, if you decide that you're going to become sustainable, well, what's the value of being certified sustainable? Why not just hang a "We are sustainable" sign? And why not just say, "Hey, we're sustainable"? Well, given the puffery, given the advertising exaggerations that are currently going throughout the world in every category, people disbelieve statements unless they have a valid, reliable third party to back them up. Over 70% of consumers will disbelieve your sustainability claims if you make them without having a valid certification to back you up. Yet over 70% of consumers will believe your claims if you have a verified, certified, legitimate third party that backs you up. So from the standpoint of market recognition, that certification brings validity to your claims. So then the question is, well, how are certified sustainable companies performing versus their non-certified peers? Well, they're lapping the field. They're doing materially better than their non-certified peers. Depending on the research you read, they're growing anywhere between 75% and 20 times faster than their non-certified peers. So having that certification has a material revenue side gain for your organization. It brings us back to that very first point we were making. Start with sustainability. It gives you a foundation, it gets management happy, and then you move into the other 3. So that brings me to, okay, so let me go back and rethink the whole question of certification. What if we just pursued sustainability internally? What if our organization just decided we just want to become sustainable on our own? Well, if you do, congratulations. If you do everything right, you will help the environment, and that is wonderful. You will not maximize your brand image, your revenues, and your profits, and you will not be able to lead others to sustainability. One of the things that all of us need to do is help other organizations follow our lead and become sustainable, ESG, carbon neutral, net zero also. If you have a customized program within your organization, it's hard to suggest that somebody follow that because it's custom to you. You need to have a platform, a standard that other organizations can follow. So if you say, do what we did, they're able to do so. That takes us to the key things that you should look for in a program. There are 8 things that if an organization decides it wants to become sustainable, there are 8 things it should look for in a sustainability certification program. Number 1 is employee performance health enhancement. Yes, employees are part of sustainability. You want a people piece. Every organization in the world is currently suffering roughly 5% GDP, 5% profit loss due to the big five: insomnia, stress, anxiety, people pain, and mental acuity issues. If you get your staff to be happier, healthier, and more productive, they're going to want to do more for others, and sustainability comes easier for them. So you need a people piece that's part of your sustainability program. It's not just about LEDs and solar panels, it's about the people. You want to certify the business, not the box. The box is the building. From a revenue enhancement and a branding standpoint, certifying the box you're sitting in doesn't move the needle. You want to certify the business that's selling the product. You need a third-party audit. Don't buy a program, don't get a program that sends you the certification with you saying, yeah, sure, we put solar on the roof. You need a third-party audit to validate what you've done. That gives credibility to the certification. It brings credibility to you. Use a global standard. The world is coming together around a few key standards. We're a global platform. We're in many countries around the world. The world is using key standards. Don't use a small local standard as much as you may want to. Long term, it's not going to do you the value that a global standard will. Promotion of the certification. You want a program that will help you promote that certification for the revenue side benefit. You want continual improvement as part of your program. In other words, you want to come in wherever your organization is. Some organizations are pretty far along. Some organizations are not. You want to be able to start wherever you are and progressively improve. Annual update. You want sustainability is a constantly changing and constantly improving process. It's not static. Your program needs to show annual improvements. It can't be just a single certification and be done. Finally, it's got to be affordable. It's got to have price. I think I've done it in my 7 minutes. That's it for me.
Excellent, excellent, David. Thank you so much. You rocked it. So without any further ado, time is precious. We would continue now. Roshni, would you like to take the stage now?
Thanks, Jana. So you alluded earlier to calling me an expert. I certainly don't feel like that after being in the space for about 20 years. Things evolve and they change. And yet, I was on a talk with JSE Associates about a month back, and it feels like we've been talking for about 30 years, but nothing really changes. So where are we now? Profit has always been the end game, and it seems it still is the end game. And I think we can't have companies running without profit. So there's a trade-off between profit versus purpose and what is right and what is not right in the game of sustainability. You can see that cycles come and go. We've had wars, we've had crises, we've had oil crises. Oil's actually leading the story up to now. And it just seems like nothing really changes. The cycles go up and down, and we keep, from a government perspective, pumping money into the system and looking for those profit-driven growth curves. But so what happens to the S&G components that we are looking for? You look at 1989, that is where it started with the Exxon Valdez oil spill, of course. That was followed in 2010 by Deep Horizon, so I've circled it there. And in South Africa, more recently, in as early as 2021, Shell now has undertaken seismic surveys in the Wild Coast with what the judge called farcical approvals from the regulatory authority. So profit-driven greed and political will, we've got to see how closely they work together or how objective they really are. Like I said, leaders have been talking for 30 years. We have been going through all these summits, etc. It's interesting to see from 2000, Africa has actually led the profit versus prosperity objective, bringing poverty and inclusiveness into it. In 2012, South Africa then galvanized the world to say, okay, let's become more intentional about climate change. And 2015, under Kofi Annan, Addis Ababa, once again, Africa, the road to the SDGs began. So the positive thing is that now that we're talking about all these things year for years, the question is, why certify? And David alluded to it. Well, investors are looking for investable companies, and investors have themselves signed the PRI, which is the Principles for Responsible Investment. It started in New York in 2006. And there are about a 1.2 trillion US dollars under management today. And that means that more than 5,000 investors have already signed on the Responsibles for Responsible Investment, and they have subscribed to 6 principles to say we want to do this properly. The complaint that I've often heard during my investor relations days is that we can't find investable companies. And is that true? Are there companies that are not offering a good sustainable investment, or is it a case that we aren't disclosing sufficiently so that investors can compare, or is it simply what the marketers are calling greenwashing? We don't quite know. And I think the pandemic, the positive part of the pandemic, it has really shone the light on systemically what is not working. It shone the light on who is talking without actually following up with action, versus those who are more intentional about it. So in South Africa, Jana, you asked me to speak about our country. I'm proud to say that because of the King Code on Corporate Governance, we have been led by the JSE since the early 2000s towards sustainable reporting frameworks. It started off being called the Socially Responsible Reporting Index, and that grew then to combining with the FTSE Russell in the UK, migration towards the GRI in quite a strong way. And more recently, the JSE now has put together a framework that's being used and referenced internationally around what can the finance community do to really drive the principles of responsible agenda on behalf of corporates. So from an investment perspective, it's really, really important that we don't have all these fragmented certification processes going on, because it's confusing both for the corporates, it's confusing for the end user who's trying to make responsible choices, and it's also confusing for the investor who's trying to make responsible investments. So the positive thing, and we're talking in a month where a lot has happened. We're talking in a month, August 2022, where President Biden, after 40 years of the US jumping in and out of climate change protocols, has finally got the law signed on a growth plan that really prioritizes ESG. We'll have to see what happens in 2024, whether he's in or out and how that progresses. But if all goes well, the US, which is the #1 economy, is going to be 2/3 towards their 2030 targets, which is really, really fantastic. What does that mean? If the #1 economy in the world is moving in that direction, the investors then and the asset managers are going to want to put their money where it counts. And therefore, these standards that I put out, the TCFD, the PRI, and then SASB, CDSB, ISSB, IFRS, it's really important, because now we're getting to a space where corporates can report, but as apart from having qualitative audit and certification procedures, we're now having one type of certification procedure led by IFRS that's going to inform financial investors. This is how you can compare company 1 versus company 2, and corporates then, you don't even have to be a listed corporate. You can be a responsible business to say, okay, we will comply, or apply rather, the global reporting initiatives and abide by the 10 UN principles, plus give you performance indicators, and financial community, you guys now have your framework to apply and measure us accordingly. So the difference between sustainability, ESG value creation, and ESG performance is really important. Global reporting initiatives looks at sustainability as a whole, whereas your financial measures, TCFD, PRI, are looking at value creation. How does the business and the investment create long-term value? And the last row there is looking at performance and the disclosures related to performance. At the end of the day, we want our reports to show these things. Accurate? Are they showing the balanced picture between risks and opportunities? Is it clearly articulated? Is it comparable to other companies? Are you giving investors and stakeholders relevant information? Are you actually listening to stakeholders and responding to their requirements? Are you incorporating broader principles of sustainability plus the return on investment that we call ESG? Is it timely information? And then back to David's point, can we verify it? Yes, no. That means, is it certified? Yes, no. I've seen in my city crisis compelled action. We've got day zero that has been on the cards for Port Elizabeth in South Africa for more than 2 years now. We are at day zero. We're waiting for our taps to go off. And I can promise you that despite the fact that you can have the best companies and best service providers with certification, when a crisis hits, all that goes out the window and you just want the solution provider to come and fit the solution in. When things kind of get into some level of control, then you start thinking, oh, sure, but did I make the right investment? And then you realize, but my supplier was not even certified, but I didn't think to ask that. So from our risk mitigation strategies, it's too late when the crisis hits to do it then. And that's another reason why certification is so important. And what is the certification saying? So it's super important that you get experienced auditors or assurance provided or certification providers so that they have enough street credit and experience to really help decision makers see the wood from the trees. What am I trying to say? You can put the best words on paper and pull the wool over someone's eyes, but it's going to take someone quite experienced to ask the right questions and really critically evaluate whether what you're saying is valid or is it just another case of marketing or greenwashing? And that's the biggest risk. So from a Stratastute consulting perspective, we focus on purpose-driven strategies. Purpose absolutely matters in the case of sustainability. Do we want to prosper, i.e. a strategic lens, or do we want to preserve, i.e. a risk mitigation or a compliance lens? And survive versus thrive, there's a space for both, and both strategies are valid, but it depends where everyone is in their maturity cycle. And you can't preserve forever without at some point saying, okay, how are we going to do that much more? So leadership also matters to serve the purpose. And if you look at these people, men and women, that are the top 10 richest in the world, who is your leadership pick? Which legacy are you going to put your money in today and hope that in 10, 20, 50 years, it's going to deliver real value and change the narrative and change the profit-driven end game? So, you know, if we want to take this conversation further, absolutely, let's talk. Like I said earlier, I've been in this for many years, from a practitioner, executive, and now non-director and consulting space. And there's always something to learn. You never know about everything. And I wouldn't dare say I'm a specialist on something because these things are evolving so rapidly. So Jana, I really thank you and commend you for the community that you have set up and you're trying to establish, because it's these types of very constructive conversations that are going to lead to true collaboration. Thanks.
Appreciated, Roshni, taking the time being here. Amazing presentation. And of course, you know, where would we be without partnering with people and companies like yourself? So thank you so much for being here. Now with this, so looking at, I'm looking at the time as well. Parin, it would be Parin's part. Parin, would you like to take up the lead?
Thank you, Tim. And it was nice to meet David and Roshni and listen to you both. I think David's company is already on one sustainable directory. So we never knew each other. But at least this is a great platform where we came to know about each other. Without taking further time, I'll start presenting.
Please let me know if everything works.
Yeah,
if there would be any problem.
Share screen one, and then I'll.
Okay. Now it's loading. Okay, we see
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the topic is more to do with certification. So over here you will see 4 logos. The first one is SELES certification. The second one is One Planet Only. That is basically a library for ESG and sustainable companies. The third one is One Sustainable, which is basically a directory to find a sustainable organization. We launched it recently, maybe 2 months back. And the fourth one is SPSC Ambassador, which is a not-for-profit initiative to support organizations and individuals who are supporting sustainability. So let me go into the certification side. My background is procurement. I have worked in procurement for many years. And so who uses sustainability certifications or ratings? So the first one is the procurement department. So when we select a supplier, the first thing is, okay, what is the credibility of the supplier? So the certification gives us some confidence that, okay, yeah, let's take them to stage 2. So if we have 100 suppliers, we filter from 100 to 5 or 10 with the help of certification. So the people who are not certified, they're out. The people who are certified, they are in to the second round. So this is how the filtering happens. Who uses certifications? So definitely investors, they want to invest, the investors who want to invest in green companies or the sustainable companies. The third thing is consumers, what David mentioned, that, okay, we want, if you want your company to go a long way, definitely you need to be certified by the right kind of organizations. Now, how do we compare, or I compare for deriving at our certification, SELAS certification? So there is a United Nations supported ITC standard map, which is having roughly around 324 different certifications and ratings. I have showed the link over here. What I'll do is also share this link on the chat box after this particular meeting. And in the standard, this is a link of the standard which we see. You can compare, or you can find all the great standards or good standards over here. You type in the standard GRI or maybe SA 8000 or any well-known standard over here, even the ratings. And then you can compare where that standards and ratings works for you or not. So each and every standard have their own strength. Somebody is more focusing on environment, somebody is more focusing on the social side, like SA 8000. Once you go into these maps, or once you come to know that you're having more than 1,000 certifications worldwide, you get confused what to do. So now the first challenge is, which standard should I choose? So once you choose it, then the second question is, how much will it cost to me? Third thing is, you have the best standard, or you have chosen the standard, but it takes 1 year or 2 years to get certified, then everything gets delayed. Whatsoever plan you have for using the certification for marketing, that gets delayed. And after doing all this thing, the last thing would be, how will my company benefit? So you are having a lot of questions, and these are just 4 I have mentioned, but for an organization, you have far many questions than what I have mentioned over here. So now, how does SELAS differentiate itself from this 500 or 1,000 standards and certifications available worldwide? And the first thing how we differentiate is basically, we are scalable because we are not a standard. We are a framework. So we have a framework which can suit small organizations, which can suit large corporates. So you can scale it from small to big. You can scale it from virtual assessment to physical assessment, and far more than physical assessment is a surprise audits. So you can scale as per your budget, as per your customer's requirement. The second thing is basically it's about gap analysis. Like you are already certified by SA 8000 or a reputed organizations. Now your customer is saying, yeah, this is very good for social side, but now we want to see more about carbon, or we want to see more about the waste management side, which is missing in SA 8000, or it is not enough. Then we only try to verify that particular aspect of the organization, and we provide the certification. Third thing is you can manage the cost as it is scalable. You can choose what kind of audit and assessment you are expecting. The next thing is transparency. Whatsoever we are doing it, or whatsoever output is there, we make it public. So, but the public thing, before we make it public, we take permission from the organization that this will go public. Are you okay with it? If they say yes, we make it public. If they say no, then we don't certify, or we say, okay, this is a certification, but these are the other output or other report attached with the certification. So if you are sharing certification, you should share the report along with the certification. The fifth thing is verifiability. Now what happens is when you have a certificate, if that can't be verified on the website easily, or it takes so much time to find out how to verify it, or you have to send an email to somebody to check whether this is a right certificate or not. To get rid of all these things, we have dual verifiability. One, you can just enter a code in the on our website, or if you don't want to enter a code, then we provide a QR code. You just scan through your mobile phone camera, and all the data and result comes in front of you, whether this is a genuine certificate or not. And if somebody is certified, what is good about that certification, what good we have found in that thing. Third thing, as it is not a standard, we can pick and choose things. And so what we have done is we are trying to use the best practices from standards, ratings, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, ISO 20400, which is basically a sustainable procurement practice, and ISO 26000, which is basically social sustainability standard. The next thing which we take care of is basically law regulations. We try to follow the UK law and regulations because we are answerable to the UK government, because we are based in the UK. And the last thing is about who is certifying or who is assessing. That is the basic or the most important question which the people have in mind. We use at least one PhD degree holder in the assessment process. So it is done by somebody who is having some highest possible degree in either environment or social science. So this is our differentiators while we are doing it. So we are, you can say that we are basically an add-on kind of certification. You already have a certification, but your customer wants something special, we do it. Or you can say that if Rolls-Royce wants to certify 1,000 suppliers and they don't have enough procurement team to do that particular assessment, we are the one who they can hire us to assess as per their framework or their chosen framework or their particular Q&A. So we are having that flexibility because we are a framework and not a standard. So that is where, or that is how we can help others. Thank you. That's it from my side. Jana, thank you very much, and the team for listening to me.
Super. Thank you very much, Parin. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of elements. Also, maybe a quick info for those which have not seen it yet. We are running a quick poll on ESG certification patterns. So I encourage you to, make your choice, if you like, on, what you consider relevant for your for the certification based on what you heard or what you are going to hear also going forward in this coming few minutes. And yeah, let's see, what the results will be, what people vote for is important from their perspective. With this, I would go quickly to Josh. Josh, are you still with us?
Yeah, still here.
Great pleasure to have you here. So, we are short in time as always. So if you can tell
I'll
us,
be quick.
short and sweet, what the ESG Conference Africa is going to be about, who's
Yeah.
going to come, why they should come, and why you do it in the first place, that would be amazing. And then we would
Okay.
continue to Konstantin to also brief us on the digital solutions for ESG, which they work on. And then we have a little bit of time for some general Q&A.
Okay.
Please.
Yes, well, thanks very much for your time, everyone, for the opportunity to share this stage with all these industry experts. Very interesting listening to you so far. I'm going to profess or confess that I'm not an ESG expert by trade. I come from the trade fair and conferencing background. Before that, I was a management consultant. But I ran a lot of renewable energy fairs during my time. For the Wind Energy Association, they have a wind show called Wind Arbor. For the IPP office, Independent Power Producer Office, who are responsible for running a number of bid windows to procure renewable energy to supplement the grid. As you may know, in South Africa, we have serious load shedding problems, which Roshni will be very familiar with. So we have problems with power supply. And so I've run a lot of their bid window conferences, and also then at the beginning of the year, I launched a solar power conference with the Solar Association. So through that, I became very familiar with the just energy transition and started to learn more about ESG, and identified that there was a need, especially in Africa, for an ESG type conference. And the reason for that is that I think ESG from an African perspective needs a very unique approach for discussion. We set up a steering committee when we launched the conference with people from the industry, large corporates, heads of ESG, heads of sustainability in the corporates. We've got the endorsement of a number of key industry bodies who are also part of the steering committee. And one of the challenges they say is, because a lot of governments in Africa don't take a stance on ESG, we end up adopting a lot of what's developed in other continents and countries. And the conversation needs to be shaped around what's relevant within our continent. I would argue, as you may have seen, there was in The Economist a fairly damning article about ESG not so long ago, saying that they should separate the E, the S, and the G and just call it emissions. And again, I think that in Africa in particular, and in South Africa, in some aspects, the social side is as important, if not more important. We deal with very high unemployment and other social issues. It's not to say that one should be prioritized over the other, but we have to look at it from a holistic point of view. So that's really why we developed the ESG conference. It's going to be taking place at the end of October at the Sandton Convention Center in Johannesburg. We have, as I said, the endorsement of a number of key industry bodies such as the National Business Initiative, Business Unity South Africa, Good Governance Academy, and the South African National Energy Association. Who've also helped us from a conference program point of view. We've got some really top local and international speakers confirmed. And we're really looking over the 2 days. The first day is titled Leading the Change, as we have found that leadership and culture play a huge role in embedding ESG within organizations. If you've got to get it really embedded within the DNA of the organization. So the first day of the conference will focus on that. And the second day is taking an African stance. So it's looking at ESG within an African context and how you make it more relevant and applicable within that context. As I said, I didn't prepare any slides. I wanted to keep it fairly brief. I can obviously post the link to the website for people who've require kind of more information or want to know more about the topics, who's speaking, the cost to attend. I'm also very happy to share my contact details if people want to reach out to me directly. The only other thing I'd mention is that we are also hosting a number of masterclasses in the next 8 weeks in the build-up to the conference. The first one, which is actually starting next week, is ESG 101. And then the following one on the 21st of September, which is sponsored by Herbert Smith Freehills, is basically unpacking the TCFD guidelines. And then the last one will be on the 27th of September, and it's unpacking the S in ESG. So the website details, which I'm posting now, has all the information, dates, who's speaking, and as I said, very happy for any of you to reach out to me directly if you've got further questions. I hope that was short and sharp enough.
Wonderful, wonderful presentation or talk. Thanks for coming and sharing with us. What is the aspect which you particularly see, which is important for ESG? I would like to at least make one question per person, per speaker. So let's move to Konstantin with this, and then we close the round and go into the Q&A. Konstantin, it's your stage.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Konstantin. I'm from ChainStep, which is a boutique software development company in Hamburg with a focus on enterprise clients. So our clients are from the mobility sector, insurance companies, FMCG companies, and on the tech side, we bring together blockchain technology with AI and IoT. And to say it right away, because especially in the sustainability community, blockchain has a quite well, it's often regarded as very bad. We mainly work with blockchains such as Algorand, which is carbon neutral, which is a proof of stake blockchain. So very different to, for example, the Bitcoin blockchain, and million times more energy efficient. So from a sustainability point of view, it is okay to use it if it is actually supporting a good use case. The introduction to what we have come up will do Frank in a second, but just to give you a rough overview, the product Frank will present is coming from the textile industry. We are in a small EU-funded project with a focus on technical textile and aerospace, but we have also very originally this idea came from a discussion with Pick und Kloppenburg and Kick. You probably don't know these companies, but they are quite large fashion retailers in Germany on the low end of the price spectrum. So they are not luxury goods; they are more like, not fast fashion, but in the same price range. And unfortunately we realized there that there is probably a technical solution, but the willingness to change in the industry from normal players is, apart from doing what is minimal necessary, is very small. So we are, with the solution we have developed, looking for feedback for potential partners who are maybe willing to do more. That's basically it. We need product feedback, and we need we want to, in the next 2 months, we want to come to a clear assessment whether there is actually a business case. So is someone valuing this more on transparency and this more on security of sustainability data, or is it just a nice idea and the market is just not ready to actually pay for it? Having said that, it is not necessarily always associated with additional cost. We understand that there is, especially, for example, in textile, huge cost pressure on the producers and on the retailers. So we always try to consider that if we introduce a digital solution, if we introduce transparency, it should also benefit the process. So ideally, the process cost optimization we reach with these kind of solutions is basically paying for the price of the tool. But that should it be from my side. Please, Frank, take over.
Yes, hello everyone from my side too. I'm Frank, and I'm a consultant for sustainability and supply chain here at ChainStep. And as Konstantin said, the solution I'm gonna explain to you or present to you comes from the textile sector, mainly because before joining ChainStep as tech provider, I was working in the textile industry for supply chain sustainability, and we've developed a solution on the basis of the textile supply chain. But I also want to say that we see that the pressure for sustainability is upcoming in literally every single industry, and that's why we're trying to develop a solution that well, stems from textile, but is portable to any other industry by implementing a flexible data model. I'll post my LinkedIn contact in the chat too right now, so you can happy to connect with you after the call. But maybe let me try to explain or let me try to share with you a little bit more the value chain perspective. So far, the points we've heard here, they're all very valid about certification of your own company and how important it is to get your own company certified for your customers to make your claims about sustainability verifiable. But also what happens in textile, but many other industries as well, is that the majority of the value creation doesn't happen with the customer-facing company, but happens with the upstream supply chain. And this is why, from a value chain perspective, we also have the need for verifiable claims. Here again, at the example of the textile industry, we see that the whole question about sustainability, or the whole challenge about sustainability, involves a multitude of stakeholders, not only the customer-facing fashion brand in this case, but also your whole supply chain, your consumer as well, and even external stakeholders like regulators. David has made the point already that consumers are happily spending more money if they can verify claims related to sustainability. There are a lot of studies around in the textile industry. We have even like concrete data for EU textile consumers. But beyond that, there's the whole issue about just getting your supply chain more up to shape with sustainability, because for textiles, 20% of the global wastewater and 10% of the global carbon footprint stem from the textile supply chain. And the brand can only do so much in becoming environmentally certified themselves if their supply chain is not, or if the consumers cannot verify the claims that a brand is making about their supply chain. So in order to tackle all these issues at once, what we need is visibility through product traceability, because the product will be bought by the consumer in the end, and it's the product is the touch point of the consumer to your company as a brand. So in the best case, when the consumer buys a product, he could directly check with the product what kind of sustainable measures have been taken, not only by the brand selling that product, but by the whole supply chain that is behind the product. So this also kind of relates to Roshni's point about fragmentation of certification. There are so many different certification frameworks outside that Roshni has already touched upon, but fragmentation of certification also relates to the different companies, because in the end, yes, some certification schemes might apply for your own brand, but still certification is so fragmented along the value chain, it needs somehow be consolidated or aggregated. And I mean, we are already seeing technological solutions coming up. There are very complex ones like supply chain management systems that include the whole supply chain and start to increase visibility and traceability of your products. There are solutions outside that tackle especially the concept or the idea of product traceability and creating a digital product passport. And we are also somehow categorized in this whole product passport idea. What that means is that a brand selling their good to the consumers will be able to collect detailed information about all the related aspects, all the sustainability related aspects in their value stream, and share it with the consumers, consolidate it with the consumers in a very simple technological solutions, and then share it with the consumers. This concept is already known as digital product passport, as product traceability. However, what we do differently is the whole topic around data sovereignty or data anonymity, or the whole question, what am I sharing with whom? Because in the end, traceability systems, they suffer from two main problems. One is that they're highly complex, meaning the traceability systems that I know of, they require extensive supply chain mapping beforehand. So when you buy a traceability solution, you also buy a whole supplier assessment or value chain assessment with it. And that first digs through the whole supply chain and tries to map all the suppliers. And I would say this is kind of the barrier to entry, because if you can map your suppliers, then you already have some kind of visibility. And many companies approach us because they don't even have a map of their suppliers. So yeah, this is where the barrier to traceability is high, and where we are pursuing an approach where there is no supply chain mapping needed, but the supply chain map will evolve dynamically. This is also related to the whole question of what am I sharing with whom in a, let's say, highly controlled supply chain, or in a supply chain that uses a very complex system, supply chain management systems, or those other traceability systems. The supply chain owner or the controller of the supply chain would say, would dictate what needs to be shared with whom, and that deters especially upstream suppliers, since they are so far removed from the supply chain controller that they might not want to share certain data, and rather prefer to delay the whole project. Or even in textile, I've had some supply chain interactions where those upstream suppliers even say, yeah, then in that case I do without it. So the way we are solving it is that you, as the one who generates data of your input material, that will be passed on to your customer and then transformed again until it finally reaches the consumer, you have the levers to decide what you decide with your direct customer, but also change this data sharing depending on the role that the requester has. So you can share certain kind of data, your name, for example, with your direct customer, but maybe the end producer, the one who sells the product to consumer, might not be, or you don't want to share your data with him, your name with him, but only your production location. This is not so far not implemented in other traceability systems, and this is where we believe that we can make a difference by counting on data sovereignty and voluntary disclosure. And then we will have a dynamically evolving supply chain map, and in the end, it's up to every producer, every supplier, what they want to share with whom. Additionally, I think interoperability is a whole different topic. Is a very important question, in the sense that you have so many customers who might have different requirements and different systems to be onboarded on, that in the end you want to avoid spending time on 20 different platforms. That's why we design our system based on open source and based on an open source information system, and make it interoperable with other systems. As Konstantin already mentioned before, we are looking for partners from the industry, because we believe we have very, very powerful technology here, and we want to test whether this is something that can transform industries that suffer from sustainability challenges. And if you're interested in giving your input or trying out our solution, just get in touch with me. I also posted the chat, my LinkedIn contact there. Feel free to get in touch, and thanks for listening. Welcoming questions too.
Wonderful, wonderful, Frank. That was, in a train through the tool. So wonderful. Would there be any questions from the round? Good. So with this, I would basically start with the questions to each speaker, and we go according to the order as what we begin with. So David, are you still with us? See, David is.
I am.
Wonderful. So David, a question for you. What is the regulation now, or the framework around ESG being a mandatory element for businesses? How strong is it, and what is the horizon?
So the framework around ESG, if I understand your question, what is in effect the government regulation around the world demand for ESG? And I would say that it materially lags the drive for corporate sustainability and corporate carbon neutrality. If you look at all the government regulations that are currently in play, you look at what the SEC just did in the United States, sustainability and carbon neutrality are getting front and center support. That's where the focus is. ESG is coming, but it's not right now. So if I'm counseling a company, I'm telling them what I said in the earlier talk is become certified sustainable. That's where you get your biggest bang of the buck, then carbon neutrality, then ESG, then net zero.
Okay, thank you. Then I would continue with the next question for Roshni. Thank you very much, David, for sharing your perspective. So because you work a lot of also with different size of businesses, what is the segment where you see biggest engagement from in terms of, getting your advice on business strategy aligned with ESG? And if we manage with the time, do you have like a tip for a company that is eventually, starting new with discovering their vision or mission or their role, in terms of ESG being part, or this type of planning being part of what they do on a daily basis?
Yeah, so simply stated, 97% of all large companies have sustainability programs. Less than 1% of SMEs, small to mid-sized enterprises, which are entities under $1 billion. The number one thing that consumers are looking for is sustainability statements by companies. And the number one thing companies are looking for is a way to differentiate from their peers. So if I'm a big company and I wave a flag and say, look at me, I'm sustainable, everybody's going to yawn because everybody's already sustainable. But if I'm an SME and I'm looking to impress those big companies in supply chain, as was discussed by the other speakers, if I want to impress the consumers who are desperately looking for sustainable companies, I can significantly stand out by becoming sustainable, carbon neutral, ESG. I have a huge discussion point versus my peer group.
Good. Thank you very much. So with this, I would continue to Roshni.
It's a very valid question, Jana, because I'm actually helping, from a number one leading global company right down to a value chain supplier within the automotive industry. The other was in precious metals. They're both asking the question, where do we start? How do we do it? And interestingly, what I hear and what's most concerning, Jana, is that I heard David talking about impressions, etc. We must be careful. Sustainability is about building a legacy, i.e., if I carry on doing as a company what I'm doing today, will I last in 10, 15, 20 years? I take you back to 2009. I was running 3 portfolios, and one of them was risk. And of course, I deal with insurers on risk. And on my top 10, number 2 risk was the aging water infrastructure and the impact on our operations. I got very heated discussions from executives on what very green thing was I smoking. What did they expect me to, what did I expect them to do? To put boreholes? I said, absolutely. Which city was that in? The very city I'm in today, where we're facing day 0. Okay, so we must be very careful. What if the sexiness around ESG sustainability is very compelling, but what we haven't yet gotten to, and it's a podcast that you might want to pick up that I had with a competition commission lawyer, a JSE person from the JSE, and some from the Advertising Standards Authority. This issue around greenwashing is a real thing. We want to attract investors. We want to attract customers. However, let's not be ambiguous or misleading in the truth. Unless we're going to be absolutely transparent about where we are in the sustainability journey, we're not going to move the needle. Remember my first graph around cycles repeat themselves? Nothing is really changing. So unless we get consumers to understand unambiguously what the stuff is all about and stop using all these very technical high-level jargon, I'm concerned that the person on making the purchasing choices every day is going to be none the wiser, because we as corporate leaders, as sustainability consultants, whatever we are, strategically are not communicating the right information. So it starts with intent, Jana, and every company's journey is different, and no company is too big or too small to make a start. And most importantly, like I said, our globe is changing from an environmental point daily. Society's needs are shifting daily, and economically, we are going through a major economic reform at the moment. So how we're making profits today and how we're paying our employees and bills today might not be sustainable in 5, 10, 50 years. So how are we going to do this differently? So what is my, in a nutshell, answer to your question is that you've got to start with where you are right now. Be very intentional about how you reflect what product am I putting out there? What footprint, water, carbon is it doing? And what benefit is it serving the community by how I do business? So the E, environmental, plus the S, social, plus the G, governance, have to be the basis upon how you generate profits. And hence the GRI's 10 principles, the UN 10 principles, are actually a fantastic framework to start off with.
Wonderful, wonderful points. Roshni, fully agree with you. And Parin actually made a very nice bridge with the UK government. So can you maybe detail out or share, like in few sentences, why do you consider this regulation to be useful in terms of executing on, what is the frame, what are the requirements for businesses? Why do you consider it useful, and maybe also in terms of the horizon? So when is this going to have an effect?
Yeah, it is UK government just launched it in last September 2021, and it went into effect from 1st of January 2022. So it is already operational. So if you are saying my company is green, or I am sustainable, or something to do with environment, eco-friendly, and all those things, you have to follow the points. You have to cross-check those points. And the link which I shared, there are, I think, roughly 12 or 13 points which you should check or tick box against that particular statement which you have made. And if you have not done it, you can be penalized. So it can be small organization, it can be big. And if I am an importer, if I am importing from India or China or anywhere, and I am saying my toothbrush is green or my toothbrush is eco-friendly, then they will not catch the Chinese or Indian company. They will catch the importer who is making that claim that my toothbrush is green. And there are a lot of cases, or they have started penalizing companies for greenwashing. I don't have the example right now, but the examples are online. It comes in BBC, or it comes in all the newspaper, or this company has been penalized, or they have been asked to remove this statement from the adverts or the promotional material. So Roshni, I do agree that greenwashing has been happening from a long time, and the UK government has taken a lead, and we have started penalizing or correcting the situation. And it is not like big organizations. It is not meant for only big organizations. It's meant for even micro companies. If I'm a one-man company, and if I am making a claim, I have to follow the same law which applies to big corporates. So definitely it helps, and it's getting under control. So people are making a statement that my product is environmentally friendly because it gets decomposed naturally or in a regulated environment in 6 months' time. If it's in regulated environment, you give it to the waste management team, it will decompose in 6 months, but at home it will decompose in maybe 3 years' time. So they make the right kind of claim now, rather than just saying my product is biodegradable or something.
So being transparent about all the details that are relevant for the procedure, etc. So this is an amazing point. Thank you very much, Parin, for sharing this. With this, I would go to Josh and to Frank. So Josh, regarding the ESG conference, why should businesses participate on the conference? From what are there any certain segments that you look for particularly to get engaged or to interact more with them, or yeah?
Yeah, I just the simple answer is no. I mean, you know, the whole point is that, you know, there are a lot of events that have happened and that I've seen that are very focused on the investment in financing or on specific elements. And there's obviously a lot of conferencing and events happening around, especially the E element in ESG. So we want to keep it kind of open and look at it holistically and its applicability across different industry sectors, understanding that how it's applied in each industry sector will be slightly different, and there's going to be other specific challenges within each industry that we have to look at. All I would say is, just following on from the conversation quickly that we've been having up till now, and we've actually just done an article on it, which I'm happy to share with anyone that's interested. And it was titled ESG Beyond Compliance, What It Means and Why It Matters. And I think it ties in a lot to what Roshni is saying in terms of purpose and profits, is that, you know, from what we've seen, companies that really do take ESG seriously and embed it within their companies and drive the E, the S, and the G, actually end up making more money and are more profitable. And I think the problem at the moment is a lot of the narrative is around, you know, what do I need to do so that I can get a good rating, or that so I'm ESG compliant. You know, the terminology in the narrative is not great because it's very compliance driven. And what companies do need to understand that, you know, for example, if they take the S seriously, and, you know, they've got a very diverse workforce, that will lead to higher productivity in general. And there's lots of companies that can prove that that's the case. You know, so yeah, that would be my sort of passing comment. You know, why people should potentially attend, what they're going to get out of it. I think a lot of it is around demystifying what ESG is and how companies go about practically implementing it. Where do they start? I heard that term used a number of times during this webinar. You know, Roshni mentioned it again. Companies that we speak to, they just don't know where to start. And a lot of companies we speak to in South Africa, and I don't know if it's the same in other places around the world, you know, you speak to these companies and it's an HR director that's now been lumped with ESG, or a finance director, or because now everyone's trying to get on this bandwagon. Everyone's realizing they need to have a sustainability department or a head of ESG, but they don't have the right skill set internally. So it just ends up being lumped somewhere within the organization. And so, you know, we are hoping that through the masterclasses and the conference, it will help provide people with that starting point and just understanding some of the aspects around ESG and the challenges that exist. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Josh, for sharing. And I believe there will be also more communication, you know, around what elements will be there, what are the aspects, so we can also maybe share this in the community so everybody can leverage that. And also an amazing point which you mentioned, that basically it's parked somewhere and nobody knows how to get it allocated. And it's amazing if you can help companies to get a grip on that and start implementing. Now, the last question would be to Frank. Frank, whom is this tool that you are developing for? Is it only for businesses, or are also ESG professionals going to benefit from eventually using this tool? How can they implement it in their daily work? What is the scope? What is the, you know, the audience that you are also looking to partner up with?
Yeah, so to answer this question, in a nutshell, first, the functionality of this tool is to disclose the sustainability efforts, not only of your company, but of your whole value chain. And with that, this is interesting for, of course, all stakeholders involved in value generation, but also in ESG professionals, because in the end, you need third parties to also certify the sustainability efforts. We've talked about this, and this tool helps in voluntary and responsible disclosure to everyone involved, and not only your direct customer. So it will play out the most benefits when ESG professionals use it to first third-party certify their suppliers and their pre-suppliers, but also if the ESG departments within a company who are embedded, usually either in the procurement department, the finance department, or the marketing department. Unfortunately, very rarely I see ESG as a separate department on their own. I think this would already change. This would already change companies' mindsets and company efforts if we just create an own ESG department instead of embedding it somewhere else. But anyway, those ESG professionals in the brands, in the companies, they can use this tool to better manage and screen their supply chain for true sustainability rather than only sustainability claims or not even having the visibility. So we're really working on the front of uncovering what actually happens. And you can easily tell there are so many stakeholders interested in the information that is uncovered, from the consumers to the mentioned ESG professionals, but also to simply your procurement department who wants to better control your supply chain. Because in the end, if I want to touch on Josh's point that, of course, studies have already shown that when you are truly behind your sustainability target, you do make more profit. But in my opinion, and I think looking at the faces here, I might be the youngest one among us. In my opinion, if you're a company who really is interested in long-term existence and long-term profits, you do need to tackle a younger audience. And the younger audience, you don't approach a younger audience with compliance. You approach a younger audience with pioneering sustainability, because it's us, the younger people, who are directly affected by any kind of sustainability effort that is taken, or worse, not taken by a company. So here we are not only talking about increasing your bottom line short term, but securing your long-term existence as a company. And that's my closing words for today as well. I really would love more companies, and each and every company, to not only tackle their short-term, but also their long-term profits through pioneering sustainability efforts across their whole value chain. So Definitely. Thank you very much for this.
Definitely, Frank, and super point that you mentioned. I mean, in regards, maybe just one 30-second answer. How difficult is the implementation, and how is it different from, all the timestamps and milestone systems and measurement and monitoring that you have currently in place in, for example, large supply chain organizations? How is it different, your tool, and how long is an implementation going to take?
So the main difference here is I would like to differentiate. There are certain niches or certain industries that have very strong control over their supply chain. And for us in Germany, it's automotive. Globally, it's also aerospace industry. They have very tight control, and for them, they don't have so much trouble driving forward the whole topic of visibility, because simply who doesn't follow will not be a supplier anymore. But there are so many more industries like textile that suffer from gaining visibility, because there is no clear or no certain control over the supply chain. And here I tried to mention this before, the main barrier to implement supply chain traceability is mapping your whole supply chain and understanding who is actually involved. And with us, this will be different, because you would cascade throughout, and you would count on voluntary disclosure and the market's power playing out. By saying that, achieving 100% visibility is still a longer term goal, but you can immediately start gauging the risk in your supply chain, and gauging the willingness of disclosure in your supply chain, and making procurement choices according to that. And this will be a very easy step to follow, and we can offer implementation projects depending on the complexity of supply chain that vary from as little as 1 month to just a quarter, or a little more than a quarter.
Okay, so good. Starting from 1 month seems to be quite feasible. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time, and for the great discussion, for sharing your perspectives, for being here with us.